Getting set for Duke basketball's next big test. This time it's the number 2 team in the entire country. The Auburn Tigers are coming to Cameron Indoor Stadium. And is it time for Isaiah Evans to get a little bit more run? Let's talk about that in the rotation.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome on into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So excited to have you here with us on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, as Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics, Duke basketball getting set for a major test coming up tomorrow night from inside Cameron Indoor when they take on the Auburn Tigers. We'll break this game down and more with our good buddy Jordan Mann of the Big J and Little J show as he joins us on the show today. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Watch our show each and every day on YouTube. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and really do appreciate all the support that we've got. If you will subscribe to our YouTube channel, that's that last step there that means so much as we're continuing to climb towards 3,000 YouTube subscribers, and appreciate all the support that we've got here within the Locked On Blue Devils community. Duke gets set for this big test against Auburn, and as we've talked about all season long, what in the world does this rotation look like? I think we have seen enough from Isaiah Evans, and according to Jon Scheyer's recent comments, it feels like they have also seen enough in practice, and then it's coming and translating into game form to let him be a part of the rotation. What can that do to this Duke basketball team? We'll talk about that with our good friend Jordan Mann here on today's show. Again, we're on X at LO_Blue Devils, and I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. So joining us on the show, the aforementioned J Man, who's here with us, a big believer himself in Isaiah Evans. And brother, we'll just start there. I think it's absolutely time we let Slim get out there and see what he can do in some of these big-time games, see if he can be a boost on the offensive end for Duke.
Yeah, look, Slim has played his tail off offensively, and he's come along very well defensively so far in the first handful of games for Duke. I mean, look, coming into Duke, we knew he could score it, right? Like, we've seen the clips, seen it in person, some of us, like, we've seen the way he can light it up, and that was an exciting thing for Duke fans. And then Scheyer got some portal pieces that were, older guys that he wanted to test earlier than a freshman coming off the bench after 6-7 games now Duke's played. Now Isaiah Evans has shown consistently now through practice and games that he's more than ready to play and deserves the minutes that the fan base has been wanting since basically game one.
Because it feels as though what's been lacking from Duke in that bench production or coming off the bench has been in the scoring department. And when you've got Isaiah Evans, who was known as a scorer throughout his entire high school career there in Charlotte at North Mech, and then what he's done in the games that he's had so far, averaging over 7 points per game in the 4 games that he's seen floor time, I think that's a big reason as to why he deserves to be out there. We know that we're going to get the defensive effort and intensity from Mason Gillis and Sion James, kind of in that wing guard spot department. The offense, there's more to be desired there. Sion certainly ahead of where Mason Gillis has been, and Gillis known as a three-point shooter. The shot just hasn't been there for whatever reason so far this year. So for me, Jordan, that is the big reason why it's worth kind of advocating for those more minutes for Isaiah Evans, is because of what he can do as a scorer.
Yeah, and look, I will defend Scheyer. You know, JJ, I've been a Scheyer defender since I've been on this show since last year. I will defend Scheyer by saying this: why Mason Gillis? Like, people are like, why Mason Gillis over Isaiah Evans? It's strictly because he is an older guy. Well, he's a fifth-year senior, reigning sixth man of the year in the Big Ten. Like, he played in big games. And experience wins you games early, is in the season especially. And so that at least was the formula for most teams. If you look back the last handful of years, like, a lot of older teams win in November and December based off their experience, but then those kind of older teams fizzle out due to the other talented teams that are younger as the season goes along. So Scheyer played Mason Gillis early because he had the experience. So for the big games that Duke played, Kentucky, Kansas, Arizona, you saw Gillis, you didn't see Isaiah Evans. But now Duke plays Auburn, after those 3 games, like you just said, Mason Gillis was kind of hit or miss and was more miss at the end of it. When he played 7 minutes, JJ, I think it was, against Kansas, and didn't record a point. And so Scheyer's first sub the next game against Seattle was Isaiah Evans at the under 16, or one of the first subs. And so I think that's a telltale sign that Scheyer's now going to give those minutes maybe to Isaiah Evans. And look, he deserves them. And last thing I'll say too, the points that you're talking about off the bench, another reason why he needs to play Slim does is because, look, I love Con Knippel, and Knippel's just been struggling, especially in the two big games. What was he, 0 for 7 and 0 for 8 from 3 or something like that?
Yeah, he's 1 for 16 combined in Kentucky and Kansas in the 2 losses.
I knew I could rely on you with the actual
1 for 16.
Statistics. Yeah, 1 for 16. So you have that 3-point shooter, and we know he can light it up. But if he's struggling, here comes Slim right off the bench, who will pull once he crosses half court. Whether it's a good shot or not, his confidence is through the roof. And for that reason, you got to play him, because you got to love that type of aggressiveness off the bench from a scorer.
Yeah, talking numbers, we've got those at the bottom of the screen if you're watching with us on YouTube for Isaiah Evans so far. 4 games played, 11.5 minutes per game when he's been in there, 7.3 points per game, a rebound, shooting 43% from the floor, 38.9, we'll round it up to 39% from three-point range, and 80% shooting from the free throw line. Duke has been taking a large number of threes. I was looking in KenPom earlier today. They're top 25 in the entire country in amount of three-pointers that they're taking. I love that formula for Duke. I think it's still going to be successful and the way to go. And so the more threes they're taking, if more three-point shooters are out there on the floor, I think Duke's going to be in a really good spot. They're the number 1 defense in the country, and I think that's what everybody wants to kind of fall back on, is making sure the defense never falls off. And so sometimes when you've got somebody like Malik Brown out there on the floor who gives you everything defensively, you worry about the spacing and the issues that the Duke team had last season with Mark Mitchell. But what we're advocating for here in Isaiah Evans is not a guy who can't shoot. What we've seen so far is he clearly feels comfortable shooting from the outside. Again, we've got those numbers up on the screen for those watching us on YouTube.
Yeah, and he can light it up, JJ. And like I said, what's impressed me against Seattle was his defensive ability. He would guard, and then he'd switch off ball, and then there's a lot of back action that were happening, and he was talking, communicating with his teammates, being in the right places. If he got switched on a big, he followed over until Malik Brown or whoever it was could get back. And look, the guy's played in high-level games at North Mech. He's played in games for Duke so far this season, and he's ready for the big game for Duke. The biggest game for Duke now, if you really want to talk about it, Duke-Auburn, because Duke's dropped 2 big ones. Arizona was obviously a good big road win, but now Arizona's on a skid to where people are going to start saying, well, that's not a really good win for Duke. So you look at Kansas, Kentucky, the number 1 and now 4 teams in the country. I think this is the biggest game in the season now for Duke, and here comes Isaiah Evans, hopefully, because look, we're talking about Isaiah Evans may or will play. It will be a shame, JJ, if this airs and Isaiah Evans is a no-show, and I just spent the first 9 minutes of this show talking about, hey, Isaiah Evans is going to come off the bench.
Look, we're his fans. We think he deserves playing time. I think Jon Scheyer has said as much after the Seattle game, and what I've loved to hear is that, complimenting what he's done in the practice setting. It's one thing to go out there and perform well in games, but the reasons you would believe somebody has not been playing to start the year is because of what coaches have been seeing in practice. The reason there was so much buzz going into the season for Con Knippel is because of what he was doing behind closed doors when we weren't getting to watch those practice sessions that this team was having, and he earns that right to play, and he's played so much throughout the course of the season. You would think now that that's also been happening as of late for Isaiah Evans, in addition to what he's starting to do on the game floor as well. Let's talk a little bit more about the practice dynamic specifically, and then this game coming up against Auburn. Again, it's a really big one that Duke's got coming up on Wednesday as a part of the ACC and SEC Challenge. Locked On Blue Devils will continue here in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at GameTime. GameTime is the best place to go to find tickets to the next sporting event that you want to check out. GameTime's got a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets. I used GameTime earlier this week. The end of the week on Friday, I'm heading up to Atlanta to watch LeBron James take on the Atlanta Hawks. Could be one of the final times get to see LeBron play in person before he is set to retire. And all of that is thanks to our friends over at GameTime. Curation makes it so much easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater events, and so much more. You could toggle this feature to show the total upfront, so it's all in pricing. You got no surprise fees at checkout. I love the seat views as well, where you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and it's the lowest price guarantee, or GameTime's going to credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime Picks. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's Game Time, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, Jordan Mann's still here with us. It's at JMan's Takes on X, at Big J and Little J Show. We're there at LO_Blue Devils, and follow me as well at _JJ_Jackson_. So talking about practice, Duke's had a good bit of practice sessions since last playing on Friday, Black Friday, against Seattle. They've put up a lot of film about this Auburn team who goes and wins the Maui Invite. Auburn's already got 2 top 5 wins on their resume. Now they've got a chance to pick up a top 10 one if they were to come inside Cameron Indoor and knock off the Duke Blue Devils. But I think it's Isaiah Evans, what he's done in practice as of late, a big reason why many people believe that, hey, it's time for him to get a little bit more run. Not only talking about what he's done in the games, but taking that next step in the practice type settings as well, Jordan.
Yeah, sorry, JJ. I'm over here coughing up a storm while you're talking. Yeah, look, Auburn's hot, and Isaiah's obviously the guy that we think could be the X factor. As I'm trying to clear my throat, I've been sick and recovering. Excuse me. But what I want to say about Auburn, they are one of the hottest teams, right? And so kind of reminds me with their momentum coming out of Maui, it's like Duke going into Maui after they beat Kentucky with Zion and Barrett. And then everybody thought, hey, Duke's going to run through Maui. Then Duke had that hell of a game against Gonzaga, and Gonzaga pulled it out. Now,
by the way, Duke beat Auburn in that Maui tournament. That was the
Correct.
last time these two teams played one another, was that same Maui tournament that you're referencing, and Duke came out on top against Auburn.
Correct. And so that's a great point. JJ, you just bring the facts and the stats. I just need you with me at all times.
That's what I'm here for, man.
Here or on Twitter, I just, hey, JJ, I need but where I'm going with that is, I think now Duke is like the Gonzaga in this, and Auburn's the Duke in that situation, where Duke was the talk of town. Obviously, the showing against Kentucky, they go into Maui. Great game against Gonzaga. Gonzaga pulls it out. Now, Auburn, hell of a start to the season, right? Your boys. I say JJ's boys. JJ, obviously, Auburn guy as well. Got to
shout out to alma mater. Yeah.
And but they're coming in hot, coming into Cameron, and Duke's on a little 2-game skid in terms of big games, or whatever, 2 out of 3. And now Duke's got to win. And I think the narrative can change with Duke. It can shift to like, oh, Duke is a contender, but you and I both know Duke's still fine. Like, win or lose, I'm confident in Duke, JJ, but it says a lot that they're, 4-2? Give me the stat.
5-2. Yeah.
5-2. I cannot keep up right now. I'm telling you, I've been sick for 6 days. So where I was going with that was they're ranked 9th in the country. And so at 5-2, and that shows what everybody is thinking of this Duke team, that, hey, yes, they have lost 2 games, but they lost the number 1 team and the number 4 team by basically 1 possession. And so I think Duke can prove themselves against Auburn at home.
8 points combined in the 2 losses there, 5 to Kentucky, 3 to Kansas, and set for a big game coming up here against Auburn. I want Duke to win this game so badly to kind of get back right and get ready for the ACC season that's ahead. It's so early, so in the grand scheme of things, if Duke were to lose a game like this, they could still go out and accomplish anything they want to, What we're seeing is that the ACC is a bit down so far this season, so that should give Duke a little bit of confidence knowing what they're going to have in conference play. But looking at this game in particular, what a test it is for Duke. The number one defense in KenPom going up against a number one offense in Auburn, featuring the front runner for the Naismith Award and the Player of the Year in Johni Broome on the interior. Big time opportunity for the likes of Common Malawach and, oh yeah, Cooper Flagg, who wants to win that Player of the Year award, going up against a very veteran player. Johni Broome's now in his 5th season of college basketball, starting at Morehead State. He's now had a couple of seasons at Auburn. He is the shot blocker in the entire country over the last 3 seasons when you look at those active players and what he's able to do. So this is a massive test for Duke because, again, the challenges that they'll have defensively are one thing, but you can't slow down what you're doing scoring against an Auburn team like this because they're going to find theirs, and then all of a sudden you're in a much bigger hole than you thought you'd be. Yeah,
and this is going to be the true testament to my theory of you want your offense to be, or you want your defense to be better than your offense this early in the season. We're now in December. I was going to say November, but I knew you'd correct me because, like I said, bad guy. But we're in December now. But defense ahead of offense is a good thing this early in the season. And Duke has won games because of their defense. I mean, the Seattle game wasn't pretty, but Scheyer played like 9 guys double-digit minutes, and they won comfortably. Like it could be an ugly win offensively, but you know what? He played so many guys, so many minutes, and also gave Cooper Flagg and Knipple a rest. They didn't play 30 minutes for the first time all season, it felt like. So Duke's defense will keep them in this game. Auburn's offense, like you said, best offense in the country right now. I trust Duke's defense to make it tough for them. Will Auburn hit tough shots where people are just going to throw their hands up? Absolutely, because when you're the number one team offensively, you hit tough ones too. But I have full faith. I have full faith in Malik Brown of what he's done. If deflections was a real stat, he probably has 34 of them.
No kidding. Yeah.
Like the guy's just his hand hits the ball. He checks in, he daps up his teammates. The next thing he hits is the basketball.
Yeah. He had 3 more steals against Seattle. I mean, he just keeps it doesn't matter how many minutes he plays. Like he's going to find a way to take the ball away.
Correct. And so Malik Brown's impact right off the bench, and Sion James, and then we've just talked about Isaiah Evans. Duke needs that third punch coming off the bench to be a scorer. And if you get Isaiah Evans in this hypothetical that we have talked about all the show, then all of a sudden you get 8 points from him, and that lights a fire on the team as well. So I don't know, man. I like Duke as a well-rounded team, and Auburn's going to be a good game.
I see a spot here where maybe it's like 9 guys in the first half that are getting a chance to play, because I do think that the experience that Mason Gillis has in big-time games like this is so important, and he is going to be a great defender for the Duke team. Auburn's got some experienced guards out there alongside a 5-star freshman point guard in Todd Pettiford, who's going to be a bit of a matchup problem at times throughout the course of the season. I think it's big for Gillis to be in there, and then maybe it's a matter of, okay, who's making shots, who's really in the rhythm of the game, and that can kind of set the tone for the 7 or 8 people that play the majority of those minutes in the second half. That's been the big thing so far this season, Jordan, is in these games, it's been 8 no matter what. Like there hasn't been one guy that you just go out there and test a little bit. Does he have it tonight? And I think that is something that Duke fans can all agree. Maybe we'd like to see that from Coach Scheyer and his staff. Like, let's just see if this guy's got it tonight.
Yeah, perfectly said, JJ. I mean, I do think it'd be 9, and I think it would be like Mason Gillis gets an early run, like a 4, like maybe in the stat sheet he has 5 minutes. But also, I don't think necessarily Isaiah's going to take away from or eliminate Mason's minutes. I think you can see Knipples or Flags go down like 2 minutes each, because the one thing, it seems like Knipple has been tired and stretches in the second half because he just doesn't get pulled enough. And so that fatigue sets in and he'll fall asleep. He doesn't fall asleep. He's tired on defense to where his guy will score or something will happen on the back end, and then he'll miss a couple shots because he's fatigued. And so maybe these Isaiah Evans minutes are coming from knocking 2 or 3 away from Knipple, 2 away from Gillis, and so on and so forth. And coming out of this break, JJ, I have a question for you. Do we see Caleb Foster starting or Sion James starting?
Well, see, look, we are due for a break here, and I was going to tease this by saying Caleb Foster is due for a big game, and I think it's time that we see that here. So we're in sync, Jordan. We're in sync It's a good tease for the people. Let's come back in just a moment, and we'll talk about our good pal, Caleb Foster, and what to expect out of him and Duke in this big game coming up here against Auburn. Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's where you need to get ready to tackle all of the NFL action. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Had a whole lot of fun browsing through FanDuel last night with that epic Monday Night Football game between the Broncos and the Browns. So much fun to get in the middle of the game, and you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, so Duke and Auburn tomorrow night, another late one, 9:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, the ACC-SEC Challenge. We're staying up late once again for this one, and I think we're due for a big Caleb Foster game. I think what we've seen as of late, he's left a lot to be desired on behalf of all the Duke fans that are watching him. In that Kansas game, you came on after the fact, Jordan, you're talking about he's got the worst plus-minus of everybody on the floor for this Duke team. That was not the case against Seattle. However, he plays just 18 minutes once again, and he's got the same minutes distribution in that game as Sion James and Mason Gillis and Isaiah Evans. But it feels as though Foster, a guy that was hyped up throughout the offseason, coming back for his sophomore year after missing the last 9 games due to injury, I still got faith in the guy. I think the scoring is going to come, and I think it's going to be needed for the Duke team.
Yeah, to give you more details about that plus minus, his plus minus was the worst thing for Duke for the Kansas game, but a lot of it wasn't his fault. It was just like Knipple had, I think, 2 turnovers, either one of the first 4 and the other in the second 4, and they're basically pick sixes where Kansas went and scored. And also Kansas started unconscious, and they weren't all on Caleb Foster. They just were unconscious. But out of the 5 guys that are starting, his position is probably the most expendable one, where it's like, okay, we need to change. Sion, you're in. So it's not really Caleb Foster was the one screwing up. It's just, hey, something's got to give. Something's got to change. First change we're going to do is Sion go in there and try and calm everything down. So him playing, how many minutes you say he played?
18.
18. Yep. The one thing he needs to work on, and I'm sure he's been told this over and over again by the coaching staff. You heard it on my film breakdown of the Duke and Kansas game, was Scheyer yelled at him in the corner to shoot it. It was a pass, and it was a one more pass to him in the corner. He catches it and jab steps instead of catching and shooting right away. And you hear somebody yell on ESPN, shoot it. And it was Scheyer yelling at him to shoot it, and he hits it. And so for Caleb Foster, his main thing is just don't be hesitant. Like how many times we've seen him drive in the lane. He gets deep in the lane, and then he pump fakes, and then he's looking to throw it out, and then Duke has to reset. Like when he drives with a purpose, whether it's to pass or finish, that's the best Caleb Foster there is for Duke's offense. Like him going downhill one-on-one, good luck guarding him. But it's when he goes downhill one-on-one, and then all of a sudden he hesitates, doesn't know where to go, gets himself in trouble, the offense kind of stalls. So he just needs to be more consistent, and he knows, and he's a talented player. Like I said, in that the Arizona game and the Kentucky game, he had the best plus-minus in the first half of the Kentucky game, but then had the worst plus-minus in the second half. And then flip it for the Arizona game, he didn't have a good plus-minus first half, had a good one, the best one on the team in the second half. You combine that first half and that second half, it's a hell of a game. He's just got to do that for Auburn.
Yeah, 7 games so far on the year. He's playing 22 minutes contest, 8.6 points per game, 2 assists, 44% shooting from the floor. Not great from the three-point line, 30.8% from there. And then, some tough struggles so far from free throws from Caleb Foster, 54.5% on the year so far. But remember, for his career, he's just a 66% free throw shooter. So certainly something that he's going to look to improve here. The other thing I think that's interesting with Foster and hearing Coach Scheyer wanting him to shoot the ball more, not be hesitant, not do all these various things. The assist numbers are down a little bit. Other guys have been in spots to pick those up, whether it be Con Knippel with the 8 he had against Kansas. Cooper Flagg had 9 against Seattle. It just doesn't feel like Foster has been the most comfortable getting Duke into their offense and into their sets. I don't know if it's trying to figure out when to attack, when to be aggressive versus when to set teammates up. And looks like maybe he's just thinking too much, Jordan, and he just needs to go back to just hoop.
Yeah, all hoopers know who's been in that situation, whether it was high school or college or whatever. They know what it's like to be in your own head. Like, that sets you back, and that's just what has happened. And it's just made some inconsistent times for Foster, but he's going to be fine. And then, speaking of the offensive flow, we'll talk about Scheyer's post-game press conference, JJ, with the last few minutes of the show. Like, he said, hey, I'm just throwing guys out there. We don't have really set plays. I'm just trying to find, like, fluidity in the offense. And so, to Caleb's defense and, like, everybody else's defense, and to Duke fans complaining like the offense looks stagnant, Scheyer admitted it. He's just like, hey, I'm trying to find the flow and the chemistry on the court this early in the season.
Wild thing to say. Thing to say. I kind of like it, though, because sometimes, a lot of times you wouldn't get anything at all out of a head coach. And here's Duke's head coach saying, yeah, we're just kind of figuring it out. We're throwing the ball out there and playing. I
love a coach that's transparent. Like Scheyer, like there's something about those guys. I mean, obviously, like he's telling you exactly what he says behind closed doors, but being that transparent, like, look, yes, I know that you guys think the offense doesn't look great. We know, but this is a test trial run to set this team up for March. And so people have to look at the big picture. This team is prepared for March, or trying to be prepared for March, not prepared for December 2nd.
Yeah. Well, here we are, hopefully prepared for this December 4th game going up against Auburn. Another big thing to watch in this one, we'll kind of wrap up with this, is what do we get out of Cooper Flagg, right? Because Johni Broome is one of the best players in the country so far. He was an All-American a year ago. He will be an All-American this season, barring injury. If he just shows up for the rest of the games here for Auburn, he's got All-American written all over him once again. He's going to be a star. It's time for Cooper Flagg to make an impact on a game once again and not kind of have that first half that we saw against Kansas, because as I said on yesterday's show, you did a great job talking about this in your film breakdown that folks can find on YouTube, Jordan. Auburn had to have seen something with the doubles that Kansas was sending Cooper Flagg's way. Like Bruce Pearl, well-known coach in the sport, really good coach in the sport. He's got a great staff behind him. You know that they've done their homework. But to the same degree, Dukes have got to have done their homework to figure out, okay, Cooper's going to be doubled at times. Here's how we can combat that.
Yeah, Scheyer did a hell of a job making an adjustment in that game where Kansas was blitzing the ball screens. Kansas blitzed the ball screens, and it made Cooper Flagg turn it over. So he's like, okay, Cooper Flagg, you're not ball handler anymore. You're the roller. And he became a short roller, and it opened up Duke's offense by him making a poster dunk, another dunk, and then him being the facilitator that he's been all year. So look for that for the Duke-Auburn game, of him being the facilitator out of the short roll for Duke.
It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a great game to watch. Again, super excited for this one and excited for the conversations that you and I will continue to have throughout the course of the season. Jordan, appreciate the time. Where can people find your work and support you?
Yeah, Twitter's down there, J-Man's Takes and Big J Little J Show. You can find that podcast on Apple, Spotify, and on my YouTube at J-Man_, where I'll also do film breakdowns. I'm under the weather, but next episode, I'll be on my A game, JJ, and hopefully Duke's on their A game against Auburn.
Hey, get well soon, man. We'll do this again, okay?
Fingers crossed.
All right, that's Jordan Mann joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Always appreciate his thoughts, insight, and analysis on all things Duke. Excited to continue the conversations in the days to come ahead of this Auburn game. We've got a fun crossover coming on the Locked On Podcast Network, so be on the lookout for that. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.